Good morning. Okay, so we're going to move on a little bit from our fractions, decimals, and percents. We're still working with percents, but this time we're going to be solving percent problems using a proportion. So first of all, when you see the word proportion, it means that you have an equal sign in the middle with a ratio on the left and a ratio on the right. Remember, the ratio was like 2 cats to 3 dogs would equal 4 cats to how many dogs? Well, to get from 4 to 2 is times 2. So 3 times 2 would be 6 dogs. So a proportion is when you have a ratio on the left and a ratio on the right of your equal sign. And those two ratios have to be equal to each other. So we're going to look right over here. This is what you all need to remember for this week. X to 100 equals is over of. Here, the X is the percent. So I'm reading over here. The X is the percent over 100. So anytime we're solving a problem, we're always going to put the percent over 100. And then we're going to find the is in the question. The is always going to go on the top right. Then we're going to find the of in the question, and the of is always going to go on the bottom right. Once we start solving problems, I think this is going to make more sense. So let's look at the first one. So it says X is to 100 as the part is to the whole. So the percent out of 100, the percent out of 100 is the part to the whole. So for example, if I ate 4 out of 8, I'm sorry, I did that backwards. If I ate 50% of my pizza, and if there were 8 pieces of pizza, then I had 4 pieces. 50% is to 100% as 4 pieces is to an 8-piece pizza. All right, so fill in the blanks and solve for the part. Remember, it's always percent over 100 equals the is over the of. So let's figure out what we need here. So here's 25%. The percent always goes over 100. 25 of 40. Of 40. So of goes on the bottom. And then it says, is what number? That's your unknown. So that's going to be our variable X. 25% is to 100 as X is to what? Now, to solve this, we're going to do what's called cross products. We are going to multiply 100 times X. 100 times X is 100X. And we're going to multiply 25 times 40. 25 times 40 is 1,000. I'm going to erase that so we have room to work here. So 100X equals 1,000. What this is asking is 100 times what equals 1,000. We're going to draw what I call a mirror. Anything we do to the left side of this equation, we have to do to the right side. So the opposite of multiplying 100 times a number is dividing 100 by a number. We're always going to divide by the number sitting with the X. So in this problem, 100 is sitting with the X, so we're dividing by 100. Looking at the left side of this equation, 100 divided by 100 is 1. So my 100s are going to cancel, and all I have left over here is X. 1,000 divided by 100, I'm going to show you guys a method you can use to, when you're dividing zeros. You can cross out one set of zeros, you can cross out another set of zeros, and the number that you have left on the top is your answer. So X equals 10. That's your final answer. So what that means is if I go back up here to this original proportion that we had written, 25% is to 100 as 10 is to 40. So that makes sense, right? Because 25% of 100 is 1/4. And 10/40 also reduces to 1/4. So 1/4 equals 1/4. All right, let's find what we need. Remember, the percent always goes over 100. So find the percent in your problem. 90% of what number is, 90% of 20 is what number? So then it's is over of. I see of 20, so 20 goes on the bottom. And then it asks the question, is what number? So that's our unknown. That's going to be our variable x. 90% is to 100 as x is to 20. So let's say that you were taking a math quiz and there were 20 points possible and you scored a 90%. How many points did you get correct to get a 90% out of 20 points? So we're going to do cross products again. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm doing 100 times x, which is 100x, and 90 times 20. So that can be mental math. 9 times 2 is 18, right? Then we need a 0 for 90 and a 0 for 20. Draw your mirror. Divide both sides by the number sitting with your x, which is 100. Your 100s are going to cancel because 100 divided by 100 is 1, so all you have left is x. Now we can cancel our zeros. You can cancel one set of zeros, cancel another set of zeros, and the number that you have left on the top is your solution. So x equals 18. So 18 goes up here. So if you got 18 out of 20 points correct on a math quiz, you got a 90%. Okay, so let's look over here at our proportion. It's always percent over 100 equals is over of. So now we're going to read our problem. 60% of 150 is what number? So let's find what we need. I see 60%. The percent always goes over 100 of 150. Of goes on the bottom right. And then it asks the question, is what number? So our x goes on the top right. Now we're going to do cross products. 100 times x is 100x. And 60 times 150 is 1,800. Draw your mirror. 100 times what is 1,800? The opposite of multiplying by 100 is dividing by 100. So we're going to divide the left by 100. Whatever you do to the left side, you have to do to the right side. 100 divided by 100 cancels. All I have is x. Now we're going to cancel our zeros. So you can cancel one set of zeros, cancel another set of zeros, and the number that you have left on the top is your solution. X equals 18. Okay, I just realized I did that one wrong. So sorry, let's go back. I think, was I doing the wrong problem? I think I was doing the wrong problem. Sorry, guys. Unfortunately, I cannot stop my video, pause my video, and go back. So let's just start this one over. Okay. 60% over 100% equals what out of 150? So 100 times x is 100x, and 60 times 150 is 9,000. Sorry about that. It's Friday. Okay, so we're going to divide by 100 and divide by 100. There we go. So 100 divided by 100 is x. Cancel a set of zeros, cancel another set of zeros, and you have 90 left. So let's put a 90 up here. Now, if I was ever crazy and I gave you a math test out of 150 points, if you got 90 points correct out of 150, you got a 60% on your math test. Okay, so we're going to move on to page 2. Fill in the blanks and solve for the whole. So now we're doing the opposite of what we had done before. Before we had the part, we had the number, we were missing the number up here. Now we're going to be missing the number at the bottom. So let's look and see what we have. Remember, it's always percent over 100 equals your is over your of. 75% of what number is 48? Find your percent and put it over 100. Of what number? The of goes on the bottom, and we don't know what that number is. So that's going to be our x. But then it says is 48. So 48 goes on the top. 75% is to 100%, as 48 is to what? So now, if you had a math test and you got a 75% on your test, you got 48 correct out of how many points possible? So we're going to do cross products. 75 times x is 75x. 100 times 48 is 4,800. Draw your mirror. So now we're solving an equation. Anything you do to the left side, you have to do the same thing to the right. The opposite of multiplying by 75 is dividing by 75. So we're going to divide both sides by 75. On the left side of our equation, 75 divided by 75 is 1. So that all cancels. All we have is x. And 4,800 divided by 75 is 64. So going back to that example of the math test, if you got a 75%, you would get 48 points correct out of a 64-point test. Our proportion over here is always percent over 100 equals is over of. 5% of what number is 10? 5% of what number is 10? Retros, if you got a 5% on your math test, you got 10 correct out of how many points possible on my math test? So we're going to multiply cross products. 5 times x is 5x. 10 times 100 is 1,000. Draw your mirror. So now this is called a one-step equation. This is asking 5 times what equals 1,000. You always divide by the coefficient. The coefficient is the number attached to your x. So 5 divided by 5 cancels. Now 10 divided by 5 is 2, right? 10 divided by 5 is 2, and then we need 2 extra zeros. So if you earned a 5% on a math test, you got 10 points correct out of 200 rows. Better study harder the next time. Okay, percent over 100 equals is over of. 160% of what number is 32? 160% of what number is 32? Percent over 100 of what number? I don't know. Is 32. All right, time for cross products. 160 times x is 160x. 100 times 32 is 3,200. Draw your mirror. So now this is called a one-step equation. This is asking 160 times what equals 3,200. Well, the opposite of multiplying by 160 is dividing by 160. So we're going to divide both sides by 160. On the left side, 160 divided by 160 is 1. So that all cancels. I know that 32 divided by 16 is 2. And I can cancel a set of zeros, so I've got 1 0 left. So that is x equals 20. Now what that means, if you had invited 20 people to your party, but 32 people showed up, 20 people out of 20 invited would be 100% of your guests. But if you invited 20 and 32 people showed up, more people showed up than what you invited, you had 160% at your party. All right, so now you try. I'm going to have you guys pause the video. I'm going to have you go ahead and try these 3 at the bottom, and then go ahead and start it up again, and we'll see how you did on these 3 practice. Okay, so 40% of 80 is what number? 40% over 100 of 80 is what? 100 times x. 4 times 8 is 32. Add 2 zeros. Divide by 100. Divide by 100. This cancels. Cancel 1 set of zeros. Cancel 2 set of zeros. So x equals 32. If you got a 40% on my test, you got 32 points correct out of 80. 25% out of 100% of what number is 12? If you got a 25% on a math test, you got 12 points correct out of how many possible? Make that just a little bigger so I've got some more space. So cross products. 25 times x, 12 times 100 is 1,200. Divide by 25, divide by 25. X equals 48. If you got a 25% on a math test, you got 12 correct out of 48 points possible. 60% of 150 is what number? Percent over 100 equals is over of. Cross products. 100 times x. 60 times 150. Draw your mirror. Anything you do to the left side, you have to do to the right side. Divide by the coefficient. Your hundreds cancel. Look at your zeros. You can cancel 1 set of zeros. Cancel another set of zeros. And the number that you have left on top is your solution. So that one should be x equals 90. All righty. That's it. See you tomorrow.